happen with university college tuition fees if we stay part of the UK, and what will happen if we become independent? Okay, Willie, you take that and then I'll give it to Tom.
Yeah, we've got a solid track record of this question. I can answer this one within.
Come on, if we're going to have a question and answer session, let the man speak.
There is a proposition in the white paper, because that's basically what we're working on, that's a prospectus for independence, that if we are independent, we will be able to continue to charge English students £9,000 or so fees to come to Scottish universities. That will not be allowed by the European Union. They will not allow us to discriminate against the rest of the United Kingdom students. They've been allowed to discriminate within the United Kingdom as it's currently set up, because that's the rules that are permitted. But they're not allowed to discriminate between countries. So discrimination, that will end. So we will have the prospect of having quite significant numbers of students. There's quite a lot already that are welcome and they're good to be here because they contribute a lot to our education system. But there will be even more who will come here, and they'll be able to come here for free as long as we have got free tuition for Scottish students, Scottish domiciled students who study at Scottish universities. So we'll put the system under considerable strain. One of the benefits of devolution is that we can have different systems north and south of the border. We can continue, as I support, free tuition in Scotland. That's something that can continue under the current settlement. It would end if we are independent. Students from England would have to get it for free, and they would be able to come up. Okay? Nothing wrong with that, they contribute. But we need to understand and put the system under considerable strain. That's the beauty of devolution, the beauty of the United Kingdom.
Okay, thank you.
Some of you may remember from your early days stories about King Herod and the wains. You would never put King Herod in charge of a nursery or a creche. You certainly wouldn't ask the Liberal Democrats to give you an honest answer about education. These are the people who told the electorate before the last general election there will be no tuition fees. We now have tuition fees available. You should have started off with an apology for what your colleagues have done in England in relation to the lie that they told as far as tuition fees are concerned. And I have to nail this again, Willie, because either you're deliberately doing it or you're mistaken. I'm going to for a moment say that you're mistaken. But I said that the white paper had within it a commitment to defend the public health service, a commitment to defend the mail service staying public, a commitment to a living wage, not a poverty wage, a commitment to get rid of nuclear weapons, a commitment to a carer's allowance, and a commitment to free education. That is all in the white paper, which is the very basis of independence. That's not where we all want to go. We want to go further than that. But that's the bottom line. And you have to accept, Willie, that's a fact. That is not a socialist manifesto. That's just a left-of-centre programme that's been put before the people of Scotland by a left-of-centre government that more than 50% of the people of Scotland were able to vote for. And in relation to what's going to happen in independent Scotland, quite clearly, free education is non-negotiable. It will stay and it will expand in an independent Scotland. And when Davy says that we can't be certain, he said it a number of times here, none of us can be certain what's going to happen. I actually disagree with you, Davy. We can be certain that on the 19th of September, if this country votes no, you better be ready for more cuts in public services, more poverty, more low wages, more zero contracts, more food banks. That's what you can be certain about.
Okay, thank you, folks. Moving on. Now, it's obvious from the questions that there are quite a variety of views in the room. So I want to try and reflect the different ones, and we've had all women so far. That's amazing, all the questions from women. It's usually men that dominate. Jeff, Rusker. Yeah.
Just before you start, I came along this evening. I had somebody come into my business. I came along.
I came along this evening because I had somebody from the Yes campaign come into my shop. I have been a supporter of the SNP, even though I'm English. I also once voted for this man sitting up there, Rennie, because he was one of the only men that actually came into my business and asked me what I wanted. He's the only one that took the time, and I saw him standing outside the primary schools with a placard when he was elected MP for Dunfermline. So I've got a lot of respect for that man, and I don't agree with the way people are attacking him. My daughter here has to vote for the first time. She's 16. She will be able to vote in this referendum, but she told me she's voting no, and I'm voting yes. And I brought her along this evening to try and get her to learn a new word, which is yes. But so far, all I've heard is fish. And I don't want my daughter to learn that to be associated with the campaign for Scotland. So please, can we have some support?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for that brave speech. Do you want to ask your question, or will I read out your question? I have it here.
As an Englishman and a local businessman, I would like to know if we're going to be disadvantaged. Can you hear me? No.
Okay.
All right, as an Englishman living in Scotland, and I've already told you that I'm voting yes in the campaign and I support the SNP. One of the reasons for that is because the SNP took the time to cut my business rates, and it's been a real shot in the arm to me, I have to say. And the same with a lot of other local businesses that are finding it very, very difficult to make ends meet in this economic times that we're in. So I have a lot of respect for the SNP.
And your question is?
My question is that as a local businessman in an independent Scotland, will we be disadvantaged as compared to the rest of the United Kingdom? And by that, you can take in the fact that will the rates go up again? Will we find suddenly that we've got extra taxes in the businesses? Because at the moment, we are just about keeping our head above water. We're treading water. And I'd like to see to at least make a little bit of profit and to make some growth in the small business area in Dunfermline and indeed in the rest of Scotland.
I'm not a big expert in small businesses, I can't say that, but my members are experts on tax, and we have done a lot of research on tax and about the inequality that exists within our tax system. Currently, what happens is the small person trying to make their way in business seems to be taxed to the hilt, while companies like Vodafone pay absolutely nothing at all, or News International for that matter. They're all sitting there paying absolutely nothing at all, and they're evading tax all the time. I hope that if we had an independent Scotland, that what would happen would be that we would have a very close look at the tax system and make it much fairer. And that would mean that the person that's really the rich people should be paying far more. I mean, it's not rocket science. People that are earning more need to pay more. I mean, if you ever get any time, you should look up PCS website, follow it to Richard Murphy. Richard Murphy tweets all the time. He explains how to capture this evaded tax And people like yourselves would then need to be bearing the brunt of taxation within this country, which I think is a disgrace.
Your business rates have been improved without need to make it an independent country. That's already happened. There's an awful lot of other things that could happen without all the disruption of having to become a separate country. You don't actually know what currency you can use. You're not going to get this currency. It's not going to happen. You won't do it. You can't make them do it. You probably end up using sterling. Yes! You'll have problems if you go down to London and start your banknotes. Still happy. And it will come back because they will see us as a foreign country. You may find that any stuff that you get shipped up from a supplier in England starts costing more than
right?
What? Is this a point of order?
Yes. No. He's out of order. The Irish Republic is not seen as a foreign country.
Well, I didn't hear him say it was a foreign country. Did you?
Yes. If we become independent, then England is a foreign country from us, so we are a foreign country. No, no. It means you are a different country. Same as Australia, Canada, USA, and France, and everywhere else. Countries treated differently. You take somebody in Dover, they can phone here cheaper than they can phone Calais. They can see Calais out the window. Is that how they carry on? The white paper says it's going to cost us the same to phone London as it does to phone Iowa. No guarantee the phone calls out of Wales stay the same.
We were moving towards a more civilised conversation. Let's keep it that way, folks. Okay, that's the next question. Almost follows on from that, and it's the obvious one that has been in the news a lot, and it's Ruth. I don't know which Ruth. There may be 300 Ruths in the room, but so I'll just read it. People are worried about money. Will we be using the Scottish pound? Wilie?
We already know that the UK Treasury spokespeople have said it won't happen. The Alex Salmon says that it would be illogical for the rest of the United Kingdom not to agree a currency union with Scotland because of transaction costs. That's their counter-argument. The problem is that why would the rest of the United Kingdom agree to stand behind an independent Scotland financially?
Thank you.
I think we should remember what Jeff said. So,
okay, folks, we'll be here till 10 o'clock if everybody shouts out, so just let the man speak, please.
So why would the rest of the United Kingdom agree to a one-way insurance policy, where they would have to stand behind us financially, but there is no way because of our size, because we are roughly a tenth the size, that we could stand behind them financially in a time of crisis? Why would any country agree to that kind of relationship? That is why we will not have a currency union. There is a logic behind the argument that has been put forward. It is a compelling argument, and therefore we need to plan. Now, you might not believe me. I suspect you don't believe me. But do you want to tell people in September that this will definitely happen when there is a significant chance, even just a small chance? I think it's a big chance, but even if it's just a small chance that it won't. You need to tell people what the alternatives are. Because if you don't, you're actually depriving people of the knowledge that is necessary in order for them to make a mature decision. That is why Alex Salmond, and it is Alex Salmond that's leading the campaign, whether you like it or not, Alex Salmond needs to actually spell out what the alternatives would be and what the consequences would be of different currencies. For what it's worth, I actually would prefer, I probably agree with Tommy on this, I would prefer to have a separate Scottish currency. If I was the treasurer, bizarrely, in independent Scotland, I would want to make sure that we have a separate currency, because there would be choppy waters in which we would have to manoeuvre our way through. And in those circumstances, I would want to control all the economic levers, so we could get through those choppy waters as swiftly and as easily as possible. So a separate Scottish currency would be to our advantage. But nobody's telling people what that would mean, because there would obviously be increased transaction costs for businesses. Businesses like Jeff was wanting to trade with the rest of the United Kingdom. There would be increased costs for him and many other people. So that is why, even if you don't believe me, you have got a duty, a responsibility to tell people what their responsibility. You've got a duty to tell people, to inform people what the feasible alternatives would be and set out what the consequences would be for each of those options.
Do you want to respond, Tommy? Sorry about the microphone going back and forth.
Yeah, again, Ian, I think the question from Ruth reflects some of the issues which many people have in their minds, but you're not going to get the answer in relation to what's up for grabs on the 18th of September. The 18th of September is about whether Scotland has the right to decide those questions. Personally, an independent Scotland, when it has its first Scottish elections, not in September, not next year, but in 2016, that's when you will have the right to choose from the menu of political parties and the menu of political manifestos what type of Scotland you want, who it is you want to run Scotland. You will have the right to decide who runs Scotland, not the southeast of England, as happens just now. David said you may have a chance of an independent Scotland voting Tory. Well, for 63 years we've not voted Tory here in Scotland. I can't see us doing it in independent Scotland. But the point is about the currency question. The government's white paper is what they believe. That's what they think. Me, I think Scotland should have absolutely nothing to do with the Bank of England. I don't want the Bank of England to do with Scotland. I want an independent, publicly controlled Scottish bank that will control money supply, that will decide interest rates, that will decide that there is enough money available for the public works projects, to build the new council houses we need, to build the hospitals and the schools and the road projects, to create the jobs. I want a Scottish currency backed by our oil, and by the way, we have got £4.2 trillion worth of oil still to be extracted on the west coast of Scotland. Never mind the north of Scotland, the west coast of Scotland. And the reason it's not been extracted so far is because it's in the shipping line of Trident. Well, when we get rid of Trident, we can extract the oil. That's the way I hope.
Why am I surprised Tommy brings in Trident and the oil as well? But we have got questions on that, but I'm going to pass it back to Tommy, because the next question is something he's been deeply involved in, and I indicated at the beginning I've been a little bit involved in. The question is, will an independent Scotland take a stance on asylum seekers? How will they afford them, and will they limit the numbers? And if so, on what basis? Sorry, it's Sue Cumming. I don't know whether she wants to identify herself. Sue Cumming. We should have said, Sue Cumming, there she is, and she's asking, will an independent Scotland take a stance on asylum seekers? How will they afford them? And will they limit the numbers? And if so, on what basis? Just a couple of minutes, Tommy, on this, because I know it's something very close to your heart.
Well, I want to join the whole issue of asylum with immigration, because I'm someone in common with many Scots who comes from Irish stock, Italian stock. I remember the novelist William McIlvanney describing Scotland as a mongrel nation because we've got so many links to other nations. and an independent Scotland. I want us to create the jobs in the house building programme because we need houses. I want us to create jobs in the health sector and education because we need smaller class sizes, we need shorter waiting times, we need to invest in health research. I want to create jobs in steel, in manufacturing, in shipbuilding. I want Scotland to become a country again that makes things and sells them across the world. That's what I want Scotland to do. And that means in an independent Scotland, we will be investing and creating jobs and demand in our economy. I want a Scotland that is proud to stand up and say loud and clear across the world that we offer a hand of friendship to anyone who wants to come and live and work here in Scotland, not a fist of fury. Because we need to reject the idea of narrow, nationalistic idea that you build a new Hadrian's Wall when you're an independent Scotland. I don't want to build any new walls, I want to knock down existing walls. That's what I want to do in independent Scotland. That's why we should be prepared. We should be prepared as a nation across the world if there are people seeking asylum from rape and pillage and murder. This country should be proud as we did to the Chileans in 1973 when they came here. We should offer them a home and we should offer them friendship.
To Fiona, Dave, do you want to take this one at all? Okay, I think it would be worth just spending a bit of time on this, will it?
There are two different issues here. One is about immigration, one is about asylum. We need to separate the two issues because the United Kingdom has always been a home for respite for people who are in difficulties no matter where they are in the world. And we've got a proud reputation of doing so, and we should not run that down. That's the first thing. Second thing is, Liberal Democrats in government with the Conservatives, we managed to get rid of child detention at Dunfermline. I know something that you felt very strongly about, and so did we, and we put that to an end after years of Labour having that here in Scotland, not far away from here. So that's the second issue on our side. Thank you. But there is an issue about immigration. I mean, as a Liberal, I tend to be more in favour of encouraging immigration. I think it's made our country, I do a lot with the Asian community in Scotland, and they're brilliant people who contribute significantly to our country. And I'm pleased that I've got an association with them and that they've chosen to come and live here. I think that's a good thing, and it's something that we should be pleased that they have chosen to come here. Anything that any family is prepared to uproot themselves from almost halfway around the world and come and live here, there's something about they've got a bit of guile, they've got a bit of energy, they're going to contribute to the nation that they come to, and that's something we need to recognise. I was disgusted that UKIP managed to get a seat in Scotland. I thought that was I think it's reflected poorly on us, and I think it's something that we shouldn't be complacent about. We need to challenge people wherever they come forward with ideas that are intolerant, anti-immigrant, anti-outsider. We need to challenge that constantly in our country. So I'm very proud, I think, of the things that I stand for, the fact that I want an open, tolerant nation, and I detect from the first round of applause this evening that perhaps you might agree with me. So that's a good thing, and I think we should find we've got common ground. The challenge, and this is where the technical challenge comes, is that you can have a common travel area within the United Kingdom, as Ireland has got with the United Kingdom, if you have roughly similar immigration policies. If we think we can have a significantly different immigration policy from the rest of the United Kingdom, that puts that common travel area under quite a bit of stress. I can't see the rest of the United Kingdom agreeing to significantly different immigration policies in Scotland, in which case you would have to probably agree to go into the Sheridan and therefore have some kind of restriction of movement of people north and south of the border. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I don't think that is what the SNP are proposing. But when Tommy says we're going to have completely open borders, you need to understand that that would put the common travel area under considerable stress. If you want free movement within the United Kingdom, you have to have roughly the same immigration policy, not asylum policy, immigration policy as the rest of the United Kingdom. That's where the stress comes with an independent Scotland.
We're moving quite quickly through the questions. There may be other questions. We probably won't get through every one, but so I'm kind of relaxing the idea of just one person from either side of me doing it. And I think, Fiona, you have a comment to make, and David also. So.
Yes, I think it's interesting that Wilie talks about people choosing to come here. I think one of the things that we have to remember is that behind Britain is the whole imperialism. How we went out there, we pillaged people's countries, we took over their countries and we used them. And then when we had far too much work here, when in the 1960s, when there was lots of work going, then we went to other countries and we asked people to come over here and run our buses and do our cleaning jobs for us. So it's not quite the nice picture that Willie's painting. That the reason that a lot of people came into this country in the first place was because we had caused wars all over the world. I mean, all you have to look, anywhere across the world you look, in Israel and Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan, who's behind it? There we are, Britain, we've been carrying the banner somewhere, and we've caused the migration of people from their countries where they actually want to be living, actually, in peace, with an education system like they had in Iraq before we went and stuck our nose in. They had a water system, they had electricity, they had education. Women didn't need to, were allowed to have an education system. All of that has gone. So yes, we should have open borders, because we have a duty to look after these people that we rent lives of all over the world. Willie also said an interesting word. He says, you know, we have to have a tolerant country. Well, I don't believe in tolerance, because tolerance means you don't like something. It's something that you put up with. It's something you don't really care for, isn't it, tolerance? No, I want acceptance. I want people to be welcome. That we've got an ageing population in this country. We need people to come here and help us. That is a fact. If we get an independent Scotland, if we get the yes vote, if we manage to nationalise our oil, gas, our electricity, we will have money, we will be able to offer people jobs, we will be able to offer people stability, we will be able to look after our ageing population. So I say yes. Open the borders, welcome people here, welcome refugees, welcome immigrants.
Most of what I was going to say has actually already been said. The common travel area starts a bit technical and boring, but it is important. It is going to make a difference. I just find it hard to see that simply moving the seat of government up from London to Edinburgh is going to so transform everything. It is so good. Why hasn't it happened already?
We're not discussing the House of Lords. There's not a question on that. There's one or two questions that are directed to Wilie Rennie, and one of the more polite ones, I think, comes from Mel Clark. And Mel says, but I think, you know, this is to be given to the panel generally, but first of all, because Wilie is specifically asked, this question from Mel Clark. Mel, in the front row, so you can steer him out. If Wilie Rennie wishes nuclear disarmament, and I may say I've lobbied Wilie on nuclear disarmament when he was an MP, how will he achieve it by
an interesting question. Can I actually first say how you would achieve it by voting yes? Because I assume everybody here thinks